Girl parks in handicap spot, amazed when she sees the note left on her windshield. From the outside, Yasmin Swift looks like a healthy young woman. So when a stranger saw her parking her vehicle in a disabled spot, it wasn't long before an accusatory and angry note appeared on her windshield. Swift returned to the car, and the note brought her to tears in front of some of her closest friends. She dusted herself off, picked herself up, and took the chance to do something incredible. Her story is nothing short of inspiring. Yasmin Swift from Kent, England was hanging out with her friends at a local pub, just like she did on many weekends. But unlike their other outings, as she and her friends headed back to Swift's car, there was something stuck onto the windshield. Ironically enough, just as they were reaching the car, they'd been joking about how Swift was struggling to walk in her shoes. But the note wiped the smiles off their faces and put them in a horrible mood. It was a brief note, but it was enough. The note read, "You are parked illegally. You are not disabled. I will inform the authorities accordingly." The idea of people staring and judging Swift while she parked her car in the handicap spots was nothing new to her. She was aware of the facts that she didn't appear disabled to onlookers, and she often put up with the judging stares. But this was the first time anyone had ever left an accusing note on her car. The stern, uncaring tone brought her to tears in front of her friends. Yasmin Swift was born a healthy baby. She never had any irregular illnesses or physical challenges during the course of her childhood. She graduated from high school and got a job as a hairdresser, when something suddenly changed for the worse. It was an illness, but one she didn't understand. She thought it was just a flu, or perhaps an undiagnosed allergic reaction to some food she ate. But no medicine seemed to help her, and she started to feel weaker and weaker. Swift tried everything in her power to figure out her condition. All she fully knew was that she was getting sicker by the day. She lost so much weight, getting thinner and thinner, no matter how big her meals were. Along with the weight loss came an appetite loss. Soon it became obvious that Swift's case was much bleaker than a regular virus or cold. It was more serious than that. Her mother decided to take matters into her own hands and figure out the root of it all. Yasmin Swift's mom grew more and more concerned and decided it was best to get her daughter to the hospital as soon as possible. While the staff at the hospital ran a number of different tests, nothing conclusive was established about Swift's condition. They sent her home with a clean bill of health. However, as the days dragged on, the Swift family grew more worried as her health deteriorated. There had to be something wrong. Swift and her family member and friends had been to the Tenterden Hospital in Kent so many times by now that they knew the staff by their first names. The doctors were continually stumped when it came to Swift's illness. They just couldn't understand it. One doctor speculated that the physical illness might be brought on by a psychological problem like hypochondria. Swift, however, knew for a fact that wasn't the case. This wasn't an imaginary illness, but a real problem she was facing. She was determined to figure it out. Swift and her mother were growing more anxious. As time went by, Swift's condition seemed to be getting worse, and no doctor had an answer. Finally, when things felt really hopeless, Swift's doctors offered a diagnosis. Swift was said to be suffering from idiopathic pulmonary arterial hypertension, a rare disorder which affects the lungs and heart, preventing you from breathing properly. Swift finally had an answer as to why she was feeling so bad, but there was no guarantee of a cure. Although it was a relief to hear what was causing her distress, it was also a bit of a shock to Swift and her family. She began to look into the disease and realized she was very lucky. Most people born with her disorder, PHTN, rarely make it past the age of 17. Swift was surviving against the odds and hadn't even realized it. It was good news in a way, but it did mean she would need to be more careful going forward. Following her diagnosis, there were lots of adjustments to be made. Though it was amazing, Swift was alive and well. She needed to make changes going forward, and those changes meant altering her lifestyle completely. To function normally, she would need to take medicine through a pump every day, but even with this treatment, there were certain things she wouldn't be able to do again. It's a difficult thing for someone so young to comprehend and adjust to. Healthcare in the UK is mainly provided by England's Public Health Service. But even with state-funded healthcare, the special medication and equipment Swift required amounted to quite a sum. It was such a rare condition that her medicine needed to be brought in specially. Swift wasn't from an overly affluent family and made only a modest salary herself. Even though the costs were mounting, she couldn't afford to miss a day's medication. So she came up with a plan to pay for her health care. Swift considered all her options. She decided the internet was the best place to find a solution to her problem. She'd had no previous experience with crowdfunding, but had seen other instances where social media and the power of the internet work like magic. What did she have to lose? She set a goal of $1,300, thinking that was what she needed for her initial medicine and treatment. She wasn't sure the campaign would work, but went for it anyway and hoped for the best. The campaign was up and running, and Swift started to feel nervous. What would happen if the whole thing fell flat and she didn't raise any money at all? It was going to be difficult to afford her treatment if the campaign didn't take off. To pay for her first round of treatment would cost quite a small fortune. When she checked in on her campaign, she was blown away. Not only did she hit the target amount, but also exceeded it by an amazing 220%. Swift's condition made her qualified to be legally classified as disabled despite appearing healthy. Her condition made any kind of strenuous work or long-distance walks very difficult, and more than that, potentially life-threatening. Though she had every right to use the disabled parking spots with her condition, because of her healthy appearance, she was usually judged by other people. Living with an invisible condition is one of the most difficult things to do and generates all sorts of stigma and judgment. Swift's diagnosis was sudden and unexpected, and life took on a completely different meaning. She knew she had lots to be thankful for, and she didn't want her disability to have a negative impact on her life. Swift loved the outdoors and hanging out with her friends. Though her condition placed obvious restrictions on her lifestyle, she wasn't going to let it get to her. However, for some, understanding her outgoing nature and the fact that she was very ill was difficult to comprehend. The note left on Swift's car, remember where we started out, was the perfect example of how judgment and stigma affected the teen's everyday life. Swift had to deal with the sadness and anger that the note brought on. She was blamed for something she hadn't done, and there was no way for her to explain herself. It was difficult enough dealing with the invisible physical disability, but those who didn't believe her made it so much worse. The anger and hurt Swift felt couldn't be ignored. People needed to hear how a small misunderstanding could affect another person more than they could imagine. Naturally, Swift turned to social media to explain her situation. It was time to vent her frustration about the stigma she experienced and to explain her side of the story. She posted her thoughts on Facebook. It was only a short post laying out the contents of the note and how it made her feel. Swift had written the post for herself to clear her thoughts about the subject and share her pain and frustration with her friends. However, it seemed like her post struck a nerve with people across the internet. She had given a voice to a problem that was not only hers, but one shared with countless other people who suffered from non-visible disabilities. Her 4,000 likes proved that this was a bigger problem than even she had anticipated. Swift was glad her post had received so much positive attention. She felt vindicated for the hateful note and loved and supported by not only her friends and family, but complete strangers as well. But it was important that the post didn't boil down to her individual problem. It was obvious this was an issue many people faced, and that needed to be addressed. She urged her friends and family to share the post so others suffering from the same issues could see it and not feel so alone. Swift's desire to carry on living, as she had always done, to have fun and live life to the fullest, wasn't just about going to music festivals and hanging out with her friends. It was also about having important, fulfilling relationships. One of those relationships was with a man called Tyler Norris, who offered her great support and understood her needs very well. It was the perfect relationship, and it was just what Swift needed. As the days went by, Swift and Norris's connection grew stronger. Norris gave Swift emotional support and encouragement when she needed it, and the two felt deeply connected. It was obvious Swift could trust Norris completely, and that he would be there when she needed him most. Whether she was feeling scared or hurt, Norris could help her out. This gave her strength and assurance, boosting her confidence and encouraging her to take more chances in life. Swift felt ready, confident, and adventurous, and set out to see more of the world by Norris's side. The couple wanted to go on a trip together and chose Portugal, specifically the southern coast of the Algarve, as their first destination. The beautiful stretch of beaches was the perfect place to relax and unwind. Not only were there plenty of beach activities, including sunbathing, but they also visited an aqua park where they got to swim with dolphins. Talk about bucket list activities. Swift found herself having more fun than ever before, and it wasn't just Norris, it was also thanks to her family and friends who helped keep life exciting and fun by making every day an adventure. Although her illness was obviously difficult to handle, it also taught Swift to make the most of every day and take nothing for granted. It taught her to take the time to do things she loved. Time and time again, she proved that she was strong enough to achieve anything she wanted. The new motto she lived her life by was "Live well." The renowned English poet George Herbert wrote that living well is the best revenge, and Swift related with that saying. As well as living her best life, enjoying every moment, and finding new ways to make her days count. Swift wanted to do more for herself and others in her condition. It felt as though life had provided her with a second chance. She wanted to make sure she was giving back. Overall, Yasmin Swift felt quite lucky that she was able to live a normal life. Sure, there were other things that were hard for her to do that her friends and family could do easily, but this didn't stop her from living life to the fullest. She wanted to pick up where she'd left off before receiving the diagnosis of her treatment, before she even started to feel its effects. And she wanted to do even more than she had planned back when she was healthy. When she first received her diagnosis, Swift got herself together and started to live a healthier life. Her treatment was a small push in a healthier direction, but those experiences also changed her mentality, not just her physicality. She felt that the world just didn't understand what it meant to be disabled, that there were so many people living with invisible disabilities who face stigma every day. She wanted to educate, challenge, and inform those who might have outdated ideas of what a disability actually is. It seemed to be working. Due to the success of her crowdfunding campaign, as well as the viral post on Facebook, Swift was in an excellent position to use her 15 minutes of fame to inform and influence others. She was super aware that this was her moment to make a difference. It was time to inform as many people as she possibly could about her individual condition, but also the many other invisible disabilities and the challenges people living with them face. Swift felt as though anyone would have done as she had done, facing her situation. She was perfectly poised to take it on herself to raise awareness. It was just something she had to do in that situation. However, to the thousands of people who saw her post online and were encouraged by it, her course of action was nothing short of inspiring. For many, she was a true hero, the real MVP. The young hairdresser from Kent has challenged head-on the stigma people like her faced and helped improve the lives of countless other people who suffered from similar conditions. Yasmin Swift was acting bravely in the face of ongoing stigma. The best way to combat it was to continue living life to its absolute fullest, to pay no attention to those who judged her without thinking, no matter how judgmental they were or how many notes they left on her car. This experience helped Swift become a stronger and better person. Sometimes it takes something significant like this to really bring out a person's character. While Swift continues to live a highly active and outgoing lifestyle, she still deals with the hardships of illness every single day. Each day is a struggle, which makes her decision to carry on living life to the fullest even more inspirational. It's admirable and a testament to the strength of her character. In our opinion, Yasmin Swift is nothing short of a hero, raising awareness for others who might suffer in silence.